Just imagine. I earned $1 million because my wife cheated on me. You'll be shocked to learn who offered me the money and why. Let me start from the beginning. We've been married for 24 years, and in just a month, we'll hit the big 25. A whole quarter of a century together. That realization hits harder than I expected. Feels like just yesterday, I was walking around with a ring in my pocket, palms sweaty, heart racing, trying to figure out how to pop the question without making a complete ass of myself. And now? Now, here we are, two grown kids out of the house, and suddenly, this place feels way bigger than it used to. Elton and Camille are both off at college. Elton's wrapping up his senior year, and Camille's just getting into the swing of her sophomore. It's strange not having them around. This house used to be full of life. Elton blasting his music so loud the walls shook. Camille and Charlotte butting heads over curfews, their friends constantly coming and going. Now, it's just me and Charlotte. And when she's out like she is today, it's just me. I figured it was time to get out of bed. Charlotte would probably get a kick out of seeing me lying around like some retiree when it's barely mid-morning. I reached for the bottle of vitamins on my nightstand, popped the lid, and tipped one into my palm. Except it didn't quite make it. The little thing bounced off the edge of the table, hit the floor, and, of course, rolled straight under the bed. Sighing, I muttered a few choice words under my breath and dropped to my knees to fish it out. It was darker under there than I expected, and the faint scent of dust hit my nose. I felt around blindly, fingers brushing against stray bits of lint, and then an old sock, probably Elton's, left behind when he packed for college. But then, my hand landed on something else. Thin, crinkly, and definitely out of place. I pulled it out, and my stomach dropped the second I realized what it was. A protective wrapper. For a moment, I just sat there, frozen on the floor, staring at it like it was some kind of alien artifact. My brain stalled. Who the hell? No one's been here. No guests. No parties. Nothing. It's just been me and Charlotte in this house for the past 3 months. Then another thought hit me, and it made my chest tighten. I had a vasectomy after Camille was born. Charlotte and I agreed. 2 kids were plenty. I went through with it. No hesitation. So why the hell would there be a protective wrapper under our bed? And that's when the thought I didn't want to entertain started creeping in. The one I couldn't shake, no matter how much I wanted to. Charlotte is cheating on me. Anger flared up, sharp and hot, but I swallowed it down. What was I supposed to do? Storm up to her the second she walked through the door, waving a protective wrapper in her face like some kind of evidence in a courtroom? That wouldn't get me anywhere. She'd deny it. Or worse, she'd twist it around on me. No. If I was going to confront her, I needed more than just a flimsy piece of plastic. I pushed myself up, threw on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, grabbed my keys, and got the hell out of the house. I needed to clear my head, and I knew exactly who to talk to. Noah Bosworth. Noah Bosworth, my old buddy and one hell of a private investigator. If anyone could help me get to the bottom of this, it was him. When I walked into his office, Noah was kicked back in his chair, feet up on his desk, nursing a coffee from a chipped mug. He glanced up, grinned, and stood, offering a firm handshake. Well, if it isn't Liam Connors, he said, motioning to the chair across from him. What brings you in? I hesitated, the words thick in my throat, but then I laid it all out. The protective wrapper. My suspicions. The gut-deep feeling that something was wrong. Noah listened, nodding here and there but never cutting in. When I finished, he leaned back, rubbing at the graying stubble on his chin. All right, Liam. I'll help you, he said, voice steady. Give me a week, and I'll see what I can dig up. But listen, before we open this door, you need to be ready. If this turns out to be what you think it is, you should talk to a lawyer. Get a handle on what you're up against. Financially. Legally. If this ends in divorce, you need to know where you stand. The words hit me like a brick to the chest, but I nodded. He was right. Yeah, I said quietly. I'll do that. Noah stood, clapping a hand on my shoulder. We'll get to the truth, Liam. One way or another. I thanked him, left his office, and shoved the protective wrapper deep into my pocket. It still felt like it was burning a hole there. 2 hours later, I found myself sitting across from Wyatt Humans, the best divorce lawyer in town. The guy had a reputation, a shark through and through. If anyone could give me a cold, hard reality check, it was him. After I laid out my situation, Wyatt took his time flipping through a legal pad, jotting down notes. Finally, he looked up, his sharp eyes locking onto mine. Liam, if this goes where you think it's going, you're looking at losing half. Savings, assets, the house, everything. California's a community property state. That means a clean 50-50 split, no matter what. 50%. Half of everything I'd worked for. Everything Charlotte and I had built together. The thought made my stomach churn, but as much as it hurt, I knew one thing for sure. I could lose my money, my house, half my life. But I couldn't stay with a cheater. Wyatt must have read my mind because he leaned forward, his voice lowering. If you're serious about this, here's my advice. Keep your head down. Act normal. Don't give her any reason to think you're onto her. If she suspects something, she'll get her own lawyer, and that'll make things a hell of a lot messy, eh? I swallowed hard and nodded. I'll do my best. By the time I walked out of his office, I felt drained, mentally, emotionally. But one thing was clear. I had to play this smart. When I got home, Charlotte was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. She glanced up, smiling as I stepped inside, her face calm, easy, like nothing had changed. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to smile back. I've got a business trip tomorrow, I said casually, leaning against the kitchen counter, trying to sound indifferent. I'll be gone the whole week. That night, as I lay in bed, Charlotte slipped in beside me, her hand brushing lightly against my arm. Her body was warm, pressing closer with intent. Come on, she murmured, her voice carrying that familiar tone. But I couldn't. I'm tired, I muttered, my voice flat and unconvincing. She hesitated, just for a moment, then sighed softly and rolled onto her side, turning away from me. I lay there in the darkness, staring up at the ceiling, my thoughts spiraling. Was I wrong about all this? What if the protective wrapper wasn't hers? What if it belonged to Elton? He had crashed in our bedroom for a couple of nights before heading off to college while his room was being repainted. Maybe it had fallen out of his pocket? Or maybe I was just desperate for another explanation, grasping at anything to avoid the truth staring me in the face. But what if I wasn't wrong? What if this was exactly what I feared? What if Charlotte was cheating on me? The thoughts gnawed at me, hollowing me out from the inside. But one thing was clear. I couldn't ignore this anymore. I had to see it through, no matter where it led. The next morning, I was up before dawn. I packed a small bag, ordered a cab, and walked out of the house without a word. Charlotte barely stirred, her slow, steady breathing filling the silence as I closed the door behind me. The ride to the outskirts of town was uneventful, the city fading behind me, giving way to empty highways and scattered buildings. The motel was exactly what I expected. Cheap, quiet, and unremarkable. Perfect for what I needed. I checked in, tossed my bag onto the bed, and sat down, staring blankly at the faded wallpaper as the hours crawled by. By evening, my phone buzzed. It was Noah. Liam, he said, his voice calm but tinged with urgency. Charlotte just left the house. She checked into a motel. My heart thumped hard against my ribs. Which one? There was a pause before he answered. The same one you're in. I sat up straight, my pulse pounding. My grip on the phone tightened as a thick silence settled over me. When Noah called again, his voice was steady but firm. She's in the room right next to yours, Liam, he said quietly. Listen to me. Don't confront her. Not here, not now. Just leave the room, go somewhere else. Cool off. You don't want to make a scene. But I couldn't just walk away. No, Noah, I said, my voice tight, barely above a whisper. I need to know. I need to hear it for myself. He exhaled sharply, frustration clear in his voice. Fine, but don't do anything stupid. Promise me. I muttered something close enough to a promise and ended the call, my hands trembling. The minutes dragged, stretching endlessly, each second heavier than the last. Then, through the paper-thin motel walls, I heard it, voices, muffled at first. Charlotte's voice. A man's voice. Deep. Then the words became clearer. Charlotte had always been vocal, But then I heard something that made my stomach twist into knots. "I don't know why you're still with him," the man said, his tone laced with disdain. "The guy's old, washed up. He's changed a lot, hasn't he?" Charlotte's breathless voice came next, her response sharp, final. "No, he can't," she admitted without hesitation. "You're the best. He's just so old now." The man laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "Then why are you still with him?" Her reply came without pause. "I need him to keep the bills paid. Now shut up and do what you're good at." I sat frozen, every muscle in my body wound tight, my breaths shallow and uneven. Their laughter seeped through the wall like acid, eating away at me. I couldn't take it anymore. I shot up from the bed, fists clenched, ready to rip through the door and end this nightmare. But before I could take a step, my own door swung open. Noah. His face was grim as he grabbed my arm, his grip like iron. "Don't," he said sharply, his voice low but firm. "Let me go," I hissed, trying to yank free. But he held on, unyielding. "Listen to me, Liam," he said, his tone making it clear there was no room for argument. "They left the window open. I've got my camera rolling. I'm recording everything. You'll have all the proof you need." I glared at him, chest heaving, vision blurred with rage. "I don't give a damn about proof," I growled. "I want to make them pay." Noah stepped closer, his grip tightening. "And you will," he said, his voice steady. "But not like this. Think, Liam. If you lose it now, you lose everything." I fought against him, the fury inside me pushing to the surface, demanding release. But Noah was stronger. His words hit like a slap, cold and hard. Slowly, the fire inside me dimmed, replaced by something heavier, something worse, grief. I slumped back onto the bed, my head falling into my hands. Broken, humiliated, powerless. The woman I had loved and trusted for over 2 decades was in the next room, tearing apart everything we had built. After a long silence, I lifted my head, jaw set, fists still trembling. "I'll get my revenge," I said, my voice low but resolute, each word burning through me like fire. "She might take my money, but I'll destroy her, just like she destroyed my marriage, my trust." After Noah left, I sat alone in the dimly lit room, my mind spinning. My body felt like dead weight, crushed beneath the reality of what had just happened. The plan was simple: stay out for 3 days while Noah kept tabs on Charlotte. That was the agreement. But sitting here, alone, knowing what was happening, was unbearable. By the time Noah called again that night, I was already pacing the floor, fists clenching and unclenching, my mind replaying her words like a broken record. When I answered, his voice was calm, deliberate, trying to keep me steady. "She and the guy just left the motel," he said. "I've got a positive ID on him," Noah said, his voice calm but firm. "His name's Jared Mollygon. He's her coworker." I didn't respond right away. My throat felt dry, my chest tight. Jared Mollygon. The name meant nothing to me, but the fact that she was sneaking around with someone from her office cut deeper than I'd expected. All those late nights she claimed she was working, now they made sense. Noah kept talking, his tone measured. "I'll keep tracking her movements. For now, just stay put like we agreed. You don't want to make any moves until we have everything locked down." I barely managed to grunt before hanging up. The hours that followed dragged on like an eternity. Every tick of the clock was a reminder of what she was doing, where she was, and who she was with. The next day, Noah called again. His updates were short, clinical, like he was trying to keep me from spiraling. But every word still landed like a punch to the gut. "She's been spending time at Jared's place," he said. "Same routine, meeting after work, staying late." I stayed silent, gripping the phone like a lifeline. Noah hesitated before delivering the next blow. "She's been with him every day, Liam. At his house." The room around me felt like it was closing in. Later that evening, I met with Wyatt and Noah in Wyatt's office. The atmosphere was heavy, the blinds drawn, the faint scent of leather and coffee lingering in the air. Wyatt leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, while Noah stood by the window, arms crossed. "So, we're sticking to the plan," Wyatt said, his voice steady, authoritative. Liam, you go home. Keep it cool. Don't let her suspect a damn thing. We have more than enough evidence, but the longer we play this smart, the stronger your case will be. Noah nodded. You've got to act normal, Liam. No confrontations, no slip-ups. Let her think everything's fine. Meanwhile, I'll keep tracking her, just in case she switches things up. I swallowed hard, the knot in my stomach tightening. I understand, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. I'll handle it. Wyatt leaned forward, his gaze sharp. Good. Because if you lose your cool, you lose your leverage. Keep that in mind every second you're in that house. I nodded, inhaling deeply. We ran through the details one last time before I left. The weight of what was ahead felt suffocating, but I had no choice. When I walked through the front door of my house, Charlotte was in the kitchen. She was making breakfast. Her face lit up the moment she saw me. You're back, she said cheerfully, stepping toward me, arms opening like she was going to hug me. I took a quick step back, raising a hand. Wait, I said, keeping my voice urgent but controlled. I think I might have been exposed to a virus. Someone at work was sick, and I'm not feeling great. I don't want to risk getting you sick. Her expression shifted instantly to concern. Oh no, are you okay? Do you have symptoms? Just a sore throat, I lied smoothly. But I think it's best if I stay in the guest room for a few days, just to be safe. She nodded, her worry seeming genuine. Of course. Let me know if you need anything, tea, soup, medicine. I'll take care of you. I forced a small smile. Thanks. I'll manage. She hesitated, then asked, Do you think we should cancel the anniversary party? It's only a few weeks away. I shook my head, keeping my face neutral. No need for that. I'll be fine in a few days. Actually, while I'm isolating, I'll use the time to plan the anniversary celebrations. Her face softened, and she smiled. That's sweet of you. I nodded again, keeping my mask in place. But inside, I was anything but calm. Charlotte left for work. Later that night, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I picked it up without looking. I already knew it was Noah. She left the office during lunch, he said without preamble. She's at Jared's again. Same routine. My jaw tightened, but I stayed silent, letting him continue. I sent you everything. Videos, pictures. Check your inbox. I stared at the phone for a moment before finally opening the email. And there it was. Undeniable proof. Charlotte stepping into Jared's house. The two of them tangled together in ways I didn't want to imagine. For a few minutes, I just watched in silence, while rising in my throat. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles turned white. Finally, I exhaled, breaking the silence. If I weren't her husband, I muttered, my voice cold and detached, I might have actually enjoyed these videos. Noah didn't respond right away. When he finally spoke, his tone was measured. I know this isn't easy, Liam, but it's only a matter of time now. 7 days in isolation felt like an eternity, but I stuck to the plan. Charlotte was too caught up in her fantasy world to suspect anything. When the time finally came for me to leave the guest room, I did so with as much composure as I could manage. I slipped back into our routine like nothing had changed. She was eager, of course, probably hoping everything would return to normal. But when she reached for me, I gently pulled away. I'm still feeling weak, I said, my voice steady despite the war inside me. I don't think I'm up for anything tonight. Her brows furrowed, her concern genuine. You've been sick, Liam. You should take it easy. I will, I reassured her. I just need a little more time. The next morning, I went to a clinic for a full STD check. I needed to know. The clinic was efficient, and I tried not to dwell on what the results might say. But the thought lingered, gnawing at me. When I got home, I started sending out invitations for the anniversary party. Family, friends, everyone. The party was happening, and I was going to make sure it was unforgettable. That afternoon, my kids called to confirm they'd be there. Hearing their voices sparked something warm in my chest, if only for a moment. Later, Charlotte came up to me, looking softer than usual. I love you, Liam, she said, her voice dripping with sincerity. I'm so lucky to have you as my husband. I forced a small, empty smile, keeping the mask firmly in place. I know you are, honey. A week later, the day finally arrived. Our anniversary celebration. The house was packed, laughter and conversation filling the air. People congratulated me, telling me how lucky I was, how beautiful the years had been. Charlotte was radiant as always, her smile bright and practiced, exuding that almost innocent charm she always put on in front of guests. She moved through the crowd effortlessly, playing the role of the devoted wife, the perfect hostess. Of course, she had invited people from her office. And of course, Jared was there too, with his wife. I couldn't help but notice the way their eyes flicked toward each other, subtle but unmistakable. The way Charlotte clung to my arm, as if overcompensating, and how Jared lingered nearby, pretending to be engrossed in conversation but never straying too far. I hadn't invited anyone from my office. I could have, but I didn't want them there. Not for this. Not while this charade played out. Charlotte found it odd, even asked about it. They're all tied up in an important meeting, I said smoothly, not giving her a reason to doubt me. It wasn't exactly a lie, just a well-placed truth. Soon after, her parents arrived, all smiles and warm congratulations. They showered us with kind words, told me how lucky I was to have a wife like Charlotte. I forced a smile. I thanked them, but inside, I was anything but grateful. They had no idea, no clue what I knew. Charlotte, meanwhile, kept her grip on me the entire evening, always by my side, always flashing that polished, practiced smile. She was putting on a show, ensuring that everyone believed in the picture-perfect life we had built. And me? I was counting down the minutes until I could tear it all down. The evening unfolded smoothly, almost too smoothly. Laughter filled the air, glasses clinked, conversations flowed effortlessly. It was the kind of night that would have once made me feel like the luckiest man in the world. But not tonight, because tonight was the calm before the storm. Then, finally, Noah and Wyatt walked in. I had been waiting for this moment. Weeks of planning. Every detail, every move, laid out with precision. Now, it was time to execute. I turned to Charlotte, gently pulling my hand from her grasp. Her touch burned now, a constant reminder of what she had done. She didn't question it, just smiled and kept greeting guests, completely oblivious to the wrecking ball about to crash through her carefully constructed illusion. I walked toward the giant screen we had set up for the occasion. As I stepped in front of it, the lights dimmed. All eyes turned to me. The room hushed. My heart pounded in my chest, but my voice was steady when I spoke. I'm grateful to have all of you here tonight, I began, scanning the crowd. Every person in this room matters to me and to Charlotte. Murmurs of agreement. Smiles. Nods. I continued. I've been married to Charlotte for 24 years and 7 months. Charlotte, standing off to the side, tried to interject, her voice soft but urgent. No, it's 25 years, she corrected. I turned to her, a slow smile forming. I'll explain, honey. Then, I turned to Noah. He was holding a large, carefully wrapped portrait-sized gift. Noah, I said, my voice calm, controlled. Please, present my wife with her gift. Noah walked forward, the weight of the moment settling over the room. Charlotte, still smiling, stepped toward him. Her parents flanked her, their expressions warm, unsuspecting. She had no idea what was coming. Her father helped her untie the ribbon, peeling back the wrapping paper. And then, silence. The moment stretched, thick and suffocating. The room collectively inhaled as the image came into focus. Charlotte, with Jared, getting close. A gasp cut through the air. Charlotte's scream followed, sharp, raw, piercing. Her father's face twisted in confusion, then rage. His voice boomed, demanding answers. Liam, what the hell is this? Is this some kind of sick joke? I turned to him, my expression calm despite the fury boiling inside me. It's not a joke, I said evenly. That image? It's just a still from the video I'm about to play. The words hit like a bomb. The shock, the disbelief, the unraveling. And then, Noah moved to the controls. The screen flickered, and the video began. There was Charlotte, with Jared, and then her voice, clear as day, cutting through the stunned silence of the room. I'm keeping him just to keep the bills rolling. The words landed like a slap. For me, they no longer had the power to hurt. But for everyone else? Devastation. The room was deathly quiet. The weight of what had just unfolded hung in the air like a thick fog. Every pair of eyes was on me. And then, a man in a black suit stepped forward. Calm, unshaken, moving with precision, like he had done this 100 times before. He didn't even look at Charlotte, who stood frozen in shock. He handed her a manila envelope, his voice smooth, unwavering. Mrs. Connors, you have been served. She didn't move. Her hand instinctively reached for the envelope, but she didn't open it. Her eyes darted to me. Confusion, anger, desperation. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The man didn't linger. He turned and walked past her, making his way to Jared, who stood rigid, his face pale, his guilt written in the way his hands trembled. Another envelope. Mr. Mollygon, you have been served. Jared's eyes widened as he took it, his gaze flicking nervously to Charlotte. But before he could say anything, the man was already moving on. Next, he approached the CEO. The room seemed to shrink as he stepped forward. Another envelope. Mr. Sullivan, you have been served. The CEO, once a man I had respected, furrowed his brow, his face paling. What is this? He asked, his voice uncertain. The man didn't answer. He simply turned and walked away, exiting the room as swiftly as he had arrived. I met the CEO's gaze, my voice slow, deliberate. That, I said, is a lawsuit for failing to enforce the company's morality clause. Silence. Then the weight of it all crashed down. Charlotte stood there, her world crumbling, her hands shaking as she clutched the envelope. Jared looked at her, then at his wife, who had finally put the pieces together. The CEO, speechless, already realizing the fallout. And me? I just watched it all unfold. Because this was the moment I had been waiting for. Your employees were out on lunch, I said, my voice cutting through the stunned silence. Going home to make this happen. The room remained eerily quiet. People were still reeling, struggling to process what had just unfolded before them. I glanced at Sullivan, his face twisted in confusion, then anger. He wanted to say something, maybe to defend himself, maybe to deny what had just been exposed. But I didn't care. He had played his part in this betrayal, whether he admitted it or not. Then, I turned to Jared, the man who had not only destroyed my trust but shattered my marriage. Mr. Mollygon, I said, my tone unwavering, you've been served for alienation of affection and for the destruction of my marriage. The words echoed through the room, sharp and unforgiving. Jared flinched. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Then, my eyes shifted to Charlotte. I swallowed hard, pushing down the emotions threatening to surface. She was the one who had hurt me the most, the one who had made the choice that destroyed everything we had built. And Charlotte, I continued, locking eyes with her, you've just been served for divorce. Her eyes widened, her lips trembled, but I wasn't finished. I had to say this. I had to make her understand. I said earlier that we've been married for 24 years and 7 months. I continued, my voice steady. And that's true. I exhaled slowly before delivering the final blow. But the truth is, our marriage died the day you went out to be with this guy. The words burned as they left my mouth, but I didn't regret them. They were the truth, and I wasn't going to sugarcoat it. And from our investigation, I added, we know this started 7 months ago. For the briefest moment, I saw it, the flicker of guilt in her eyes, then anger. But I didn't care. She had made her choices. Now, it was my turn to make mine. I don't care why you did it, I said, my voice hardening. I don't need to know. Just get out of my house. And just like that, something inside me clicked into place. It was over. The days that followed felt like an endless waiting game. But the chaos wasn't done. Charlotte's parents were relentless. They called. They came over. They begged me to reconsider, to be reasonable. They saw my decision as rash. Liam, you don't understand, her mother insisted one evening, her eyes full of desperation. Charlotte's going through something. I didn't flinch. You two have been together for so long, she continued. You can work through this. Then her father chimed in, his voice gruff but pleading. You can't just throw away 24 years. Think about the family. Think about everything you've built together. I held their gazes, letting their words settle. But nothing they said mattered. Nothing could undo what she had done. I had given Charlotte more than enough chances to be honest, and she had chosen to lie. It was over. But Charlotte? She wasn't ready to let go. At the hearing, she tried one last desperate play. Tears welled up in her eyes as she turned to me, her voice shaky, pleading. Liam, please, she began, her lip trembling. I've been going through a lot. I have a hormone imbalance. That's why I wanted to get closer. You weren't able to give me what I needed, and that's why I stared at her, barely able to process the absurdity of what I was hearing. This was her excuse? I glanced at Wyatt, my lawyer, who didn't even try to hide his skepticism. He cleared his throat, then leaned forward, his voice calm but cutting. Ms. Connors, he said, flipping through his notes, you have never informed my client about any such hormone imbalance. In fact, there are no medical records or doctor's reports to substantiate this claim. Charlotte flinched at his words. Her eyes darted downward, her fingers curling into fists. Then the judge, who had been mostly silent up to this point, leaned forward. His expression was unreadable, but his voice was firm. Ms. Connors, he said, if this alleged medical issue was affecting your marriage so drastically, why did you not inform your husband? Why did you not take any steps to address it with him? Charlotte hesitated. For a moment, it looked like she was scrambling for an answer. But the judge wasn't done. And now, he continued, his voice laced with finality, with no medical proof and no prior mention of this issue, the court finds no substantial grounds for reconciliation. The weight of his words filled the room. Heavy, unshakable, and exactly what I had expected. I had made my case. There was no turning back now. I had stopped trying to make sense of Charlotte's actions long ago. The judge, after 7 months of back and forth, finally reached a conclusion. The divorce was granted. It might have seemed like the end, but as you remember, I didn't know at the time that I would soon become a millionaire. Let me explain how it all happened. Elton and Camille, our kids, were caught in the middle of it all. They never outright took sides, but their silence was louder than words. They were angry at Charlotte for what she had done, but they were just as angry at me for the way I had exposed her. I couldn't blame them. I had ripped our life apart in front of everyone, and while I still believed it was justified, I understood that my choices had hurt them in ways I couldn't fix. So, they pulled away. Stopped talking to both of us. Financially, things took a hit too. The divorce settlement cut my assets in half. Everything I had worked for, split right down the middle. It stung, watching years of hard work disappear overnight, but I didn't regret it. Charlotte might have taken her share, but she didn't take my dignity, my self-respect. Those were still mine, untouched. As for Jared, he wasn't getting off easy either. His wife had filed for divorce, and I knew for a fact that she had hired Wyatt to represent her. That meant he was in trouble. There was no way he was walking away from that without taking some serious damage. The man who had helped destroy my marriage was now watching his own fall apart. Poetic justice. And then there was the CEO, Sullivan. He wanted to bury this mess as fast as possible. The scandal was bad for business, and he had his own interests to protect. It wasn't long before I got a call from him, setting up a quiet, backdoor meeting. The offer was simple, $1 million for me to withdraw the case. They wanted silence. They wanted it to disappear. I had already divorced Charlotte. I wasn't looking for more revenge. I had made my peace with the situation, and if taking this money meant putting it all to rest while securing my future, then fine. So, I took the deal. I withdrew the case. I still keep that million. Not because I need it, but as a reminder. A symbol of what it took to walk away and end it all.